Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. And this, as has already been said, it's an interesting mixture of people who quite often don't normally get together. So this is very exciting to see everybody here in one place. I would like to thank Peter for that kind introduction. We were talking about this morning, I think we first met in 1982. I was the assistant program officer in Bolivia when the aid administrator came out to visit. That was a really big deal. And that was the first time I met Peter, and we've stayed in touch, close touch ever since. And I would like to thank you for your contributions, for your work in development assistance and humanitarian assistance, and particularly in agriculture. And so thank you for your long service, and it's been important to all of us. I'm honored to join you here today to kick off the first ever global conference on biofortification. It is my hope that this historic meeting of policymakers, public health experts, researchers, business leaders is a spark to foster global momentum to link agriculture, nutrition, research, and more generally global health. I would like to congratulate Harvest Plus for bringing together members of the agricultural nutrition community, from scientists to policymakers, to discuss and discover how we can work collectively to improve the nutrition level of the diets of the world's poor. As many of you know, USAID has had a long partnership with Harvest Plus. In fact, our partnership goes back at least as far as 1994. We have continued to be a partner in this innovative pathway to nutrition and have watched with great satisfaction the significant strides that have been made. This confidence in the work of Harvest Plus mirrors our continued support for the CGIAR system and its vital partnership with the university community, NGOs, and the private sector. The 7 nutrition-rich staple crops that you plan to release in 10 countries in 2014 is a remarkable accomplishment that we know will make a tremendous impact. These biofortified staple crops, from maize to sweet potato, represent the primary source of food for the vast majority of people on this planet. The policy and technical dialogue that you will participate in over the next 3 days comes at a crucial time. Development, especially agricultural development, has been elevated in an uncommon way, not only within the U.S. government but across the world. On September 22, President Obama issued the first ever development policy by a United States president, demonstrating that development is a core component of policy at the White House and across multiple agencies. In addition, there has been a significant shift in funding in agricultural development. In the 1980s, 25% of U.S. foreign aid went to agriculture. That number dropped to 6% in 1990 and a meager 1% last year. World Bank lending for agriculture fell from 30% in 1978 to 16% in 1988 to only 8% in 2006. But the focus has changed. We watched as the spike in world food prices in 2007 and 2008 destabilized local and national economies across the world. And I can speak from experience in the Congo, watching the poor communities in the outskirts of Kinshasa go through some very difficult times in 2007 and 2008. And in speaking with these family members who had 6 and 7 children, they would tell some of their kids, you can eat Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the others Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and when we're not feeding you, you're on your own to figure out how you're going to be fed. And that was in 2007, and prices have not gone down in the poor areas of Africa to this day. The international community responded to this situation with the L'Aquila Food Security Initiative, launched at last year's G8 summit, which reversed a decades-long decline in official development assistance for agriculture. The United States is proud to be part of this broad international effort to combat hunger and spur economic growth in some of the world's poorest countries. The collaborative global effort is centered on country-owned processes and plans that implement strategies to improve food security, agricultural production, and nutrition with an emphasis on gender. President Obama pledged to spend at least $3.5 billion over 3 years on agricultural-led development through the Feed the Future initiative. And I thought I'd just take a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about Feed the Future and some of its key elements. And people say it's another initiative. What's the difference? Why will this one work and why won't others? Well, I think it's the combination of 7 or 8 factors that the people who are wise enough to put this initiative together combined to make this initiative quite different, and I think from my perspective an initiative that may work. First of all, the focus is on smallholder agriculture, where, as you know, that's where most of the poor live in the developing world. And if you're going to focus on smallholder agriculture, by definition, you have to focus on women. In Africa, probably about 80% of the smallholders are women, and in South Asia, 60% of the small farmers are women. So you cannot focus on smallholder agriculture without a particular focus on gender and a focus on women and children. Along with that, of course, as all the nutritionists know here, nutrition is vitally important to women and children, and to achieve the productivity in the agricultural sector that we would like to see, nutrition becomes a very important element for women and children. The third element, of course, is research. We all know that food production, as Peter said, has to increase in the next few years, but there's not going to be additional land unless you do what the Congo does and cut down the rainforest, and that we really don't want to see as an option. So we're going to have the same amount of land or less, and probably less water. So we need to be smarter about how we work on the land that we have. So research and biofortification, and what you're going to talk about here for the next 3-4 days, is vitally important to that element and to feed the future. And if we want this sustainable over the long term, the private sector plays a very key role in this initiative. So we have a special place for the private sector. We're very focused on them, and to work with the private sector along with the university community to develop new technologies and to build new innovations. And along with that, we're using every tool that the U.S. government has in the Feed the Future initiative. There are bilateral programs and there are multilateral programs that are operated through the World Bank. So it's a close operation between USAID, the State Department, Treasury, the Commerce Department, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, the U.S. Trade Representative. We're all working very closely together to implement programs. And then the final thing that's important to this is what I mentioned before, we actually have money. For the past few years, we haven't done much in terms of agricultural research and the link with nutrition. And now we have the resources pledged by President Obama over the next 3 years. So we have serious resources to put into this effort as well. So you put all these together along with country-led programs, which is an important element to this. And it's a new kind of initiative that has more elements and more parts of the U.S. government involved. And I think we're going to have a much more effective approach, at least on the U.S. government's part, than we have had in the past. So that's sort of a snapshot of the Feed the Future initiative and the priority elements to that. And along with these policy, funding, and priority shifts around food security, we have seen biofortification emerge as a new science in both agriculture and health. These two once disparate disciplines, agriculture and nutrition, are merging across programs in development in monumental ways. At the 1,000-day nutrition event in New York on the margins of the UN General Assembly in September, Josette Sheeran, Executive Director of the World Food Program, said, "We are witnessing a revolution in our approach to undernutrition." For the U.S., nutrition is the defining link between two game-changing presidential initiatives, Feed the Future and the Global Health Initiative. We know that food security is about much more than ensuring better access to food. It is ensuring better access to better quality food, and ultimately ensuring that those who benefit most, women, children, and poor communities, consume these foods. And that's exactly why we are investing in innovative linkages between health and agriculture. And the good news is we're not alone. The international community is very much engaged. And as the world responds to the challenge of food security, we are pleased that the CGIAR system and programs like Harvest Plus are tackling this challenge head-on. New research programs plan to maximize the impact of agriculture on food security, diet quality, and nutrition, and to recognize the importance of gender-responsive approaches, which are critical to both agriculture and nutrition. I am also pleased to see a focus on mitigating agriculture-associated health risks through improved food safety, water quality, agricultural practices, and control of infectious diseases. The key to all of this work is effective partnerships. The U.S. government is committed to working with our research partners here in the U.S. and in developing countries to realize the potential of the new technologies. If there is one thing I want to leave you with from my remarks today, it's this: the momentum to link agriculture, research, and nutrition across programs is greater than ever before. It's greater than ever before. We must capitalize on this energy. The time has come for us to direct the powers of modern agricultural technology to reduce the single largest public health problem in the world, malnutrition. New foods are being developed to reduce global hunger, and we are already seeing the value of this on the ground. Orange flesh sweet potatoes packed with provitamin A are being planted throughout East Africa. High iron beans in Rwanda and provitamin A maize in Zambia are currently being adapted by national research institutes in those countries. We have seen the potential for the orange flesh sweet potato to dramatically reduce vitamin A deficiency in children in Mozambique. And we are committed to working together with Harvest Plus, the International Potato Center, and others to ensure the scale-up of this crop throughout Africa as part of our comprehensive approach to reduce child undernutrition. Plant breeding to add iron, zinc, and provitamin A directly into staple foods is exactly what we need to combine the tools and techniques of agriculture to improve global health. This is a necessary complement to other nutrition interventions and reaches populations which may not have access to viable health systems or commercially processed fortified foods. Through Feed the Future and the Global Health Initiative, the United States is bringing together the necessary components of agriculture and nutrition programs to improve the quality and diversification of diets, improve accessibility to food, water, and sanitation and health systems, and invest in better nutrition practices in the household. These are the core investments and our contribution to the global agenda for scaling up nutrition. We welcome the work of Harvest Plus in the years ahead and take their research from greenhouse to the farmer's field in the poorest countries. Biofortification holds the promise of low-cost, familiar technologies and crops that will improve the quality of the diet of the neediest. As a bonus, many of the biofortified crops result in improved crop yields that are better able to grow in nutrient-poor soil, limited moisture, and other adverse conditions. Clearly, there is a long list of benefits from biofortification, but I would be remiss if I did not also make reference to the concern of some consumers and advocacy groups of the use of genetically modified technologies in producing biofortified crops. We look to genetic modification as an additional tool available to breeders to help us improve dietary quality and quantity, while continuing to look for adverse consequences of genetically modification technologies. We believe that the evidence points us to further development of genetically modified food production. For the vast majority of the work of Harvest Plus and biofortification, conventional plant breeding is the tried and trusted approach to improving the nutrient profile. We know that increasing agricultural productivity alone is not enough to reverse malnutrition trends. Hunger and malnutrition are enormous development challenges that demand innovative technical, operational, and institutional solutions, and we need to do more. Across the globe, micronutrient malnutrition affects more than 2 billion people, mostly women and children, increasing their susceptibility to diarrhea and other deadly illnesses and infections. Iron deficiency alone is estimated to affect about half of all children in the developing world, hampering growth and causing irreversible cognitive damage. The impacts of anemia turn into a vicious cycle that limits a child's ability to learn and a woman's ability to work productively, which in turn, given the role of women in agriculture, prohibits growth and productivity in the agricultural sector as a whole. For example, in Sierra Leone, the lack of adequate actions to address women's anemia is estimated to result in agricultural productivity losses of almost $100 million over the next 5 years. Even mild levels of micronutrient malnutrition damage cognitive development, lower disease resistance in children, and reduce the likelihood that mothers survive childbirth. The costs of these deficiencies in terms of lives lost and poor quality of life are staggering. This is precisely why we need to better target nutrition research and delivery toward the most vulnerable, which includes pregnant women and children. At the MDG Summit in September, Secretary Clinton and Minister Martin, along with many other leaders, emphasized this 1,000-day window of opportunity. As we move forward on collective action with countries under the Scaling Up Nutrition Roadmap, we will be focusing on our energy and resources on achieving significant results in nutrition during this relatively short period. I urge all of you in the room today to make 2 pledges. First, take talk to action. Ensure important strategic discussions and technologies don't just sit in our minds or on our shelves. Second, come together as experts in agriculture and nutrition and explore how better to target vulnerable women and children. Women are a fundamental force in agricultural development, economic growth, and global health. USAID has been committed to improving agriculture and nutrition, and we will continue to support these efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Garvelink. I think that was the most expansive explanation of Feed the Future, and then particularly how biofortification fits into the initiative that I've heard so far. And I've been probing whatever members of government that I find to explain and outline what everything is about with Feed the Future. We have some time for some questions. We have people with microphones, so if you kind of put your hand up. I'll just start with one that perhaps will cover maybe questions that a number of people have, particularly the researchers and the scientists in the room. And you said one of the great advantages of this is that we actually have the money for this. I guess, given the ongoing economic and global financial crisis, and then also budgetary pressures, not only the United States but other countries that are contributing to the initiative are still under. I guess how would you kind of look at the sustainability of funding as Feed the Future and these G8 initiatives continue?
Well,
you can probably take that out of.
Whoop, I don't want to rip it apart.
There you go.
Okay. So working? Okay.
Yes.
Well, first of all, it's hard to determine exactly what's going to happen to funding levels right now. But in our contact with members of Congress over the past few months, in both parties, they have been very supportive of this initiative and all the elements that relate to it. The focus on nutrition, the emphasis on the private sector, the development assistance resources. So on both sides of the aisle, we have support for this initiative. Now, it's hard to say exactly what's going to happen with the economy. It may turn out that the initiative over 3 years becomes for 5 years to spend the $3.5 billion, and to do that, we may have to focus a little bit on the countries we're zeroing in on and limit the number more than we would like. But we can make those kinds of adjustments. But it's a sense, certainly within the administration and my boss, the administrator of AID, that if we're only thinking of 3 or 5 years, we're making a big mistake. This is a long-term investment. And I think one of the indications of the administration's long-term view of this is within USAID, we just established the Bureau for Food Security. It's not just an initiative, it's not a small office. We've put together a bureau and have pulled together the food security experts into one place, along with gender experts, nutrition experts, water specialists, climate change folks, governance specialists, and the issues that make up the initiative that I kind of rattled off a little bit earlier. We have all those specialists now. We're in the process of moving them into one bureau. So we're going to work closer together, and we can better support our aid missions and embassies in the field through that mechanism. So I think we're taking a longer approach to this, and we're confident that we will, funding may go up and down some, but we sense that there's a commitment from our Congress to be very supportive of this.
Thank you. And I think that'll be helpful, as one's seen with other programs, that if this becomes an initiative that is not only particular to one administration or one set of Congress, then it has momentum and becomes a fixture.
Yeah, in a good bureaucracy, once you create a bureau, it's terrible to get rid of. So it's going to be there for a long time, I think.
We will use then the levers of bureaucracy to infiltrate this or make it stick and make it lasting. Any questions? Over here.
Good morning. My name is Owen Hookinga, and I work for the USDA ARS up in Ithaca, New York. And this is perhaps maybe a too procedural question to either Ambassador Garvelink or Dr. Beachy. In this talk about increased funding for biofortification through Feed the Future, is this going to take the form of targeted increases within ARS or NIH or new programs in AFRI for competitive grants? I would hope we could get some guidance on that.
Roger will be on the next panel. I mean, you can save your question.
Okay, thank you.
For that.
Yeah, I can't really answer that. I defer to Roger.
Over here.
Good morning. I'm P.B. Singh. I'm a visiting professor at Texas A&M. Before joining Texas A&M, I was the cowpea breeder at IITA in Nigeria for 27 years. I had the privilege of working with Dr. Borlaug to bring green revolution in that part of Africa. But one of our frustration is the research is not limiting, but the management taking advantage of that research products is one of the problems in Africa. And just to tell you, the average yield of cereals in Africa, which is coming close to 1 billion people, is 1 ton per hectare. Average yield of cereals in India, where green revolution happened, is 2.5 tons per hectare. The average yield of cereals in China is 5 tons per hectare. And the common denominator is use of fertilizer. In Africa, they use less than 10 kilogram per hectare per year. India, with started the Green Revolution, suspended Green Revolution in 1990s by disinvesting from fertilizer. And they are using only 80, 90 kilogram per hectare per year. China is using 280 kilogram per hectare per year. So no matter how much research we do, if the countries, if the governments don't invest on management part of it, and it's unfortunate that environmentalists came with the notion that too much fertilizer is bad for environment, but how much is too much we are not defining. 7, 8 kilogram in Africa is too little. And if we make it 100 kilogram, Africa production will double overnight. And all 1 billion people will have double amount of food. In India, we can make that 2.5 ton, 4 tons if they increase the fertilizer. So this body has the donors, the scientists, and everybody. Can we impress upon governments to take advantage of the research finding that is coming up and have the potentials in picture? Thank you very much.
Yeah, just a couple of comments about that. And clearly for this larger international initiative, and certainly for the U.S. part of it to work, there has to be a commitment by governments. And in Africa, there's this CADEP process, which African countries have to go through as they develop their investment plan in agriculture, and they have to commit to provide to 10% of their budget going to agriculture, and we have to see clear steps that they're going to take to support the development of their agricultural sector. And if we don't see that, we're not going to invest near as much money in the agriculture sectors of those governments. So that is a key element to our programs. It's a little more difficult in Asia and Latin America because there's no CADEP process. So the review process with the governments is a little bit different and a little more complicated, but we're working through that. Second point, and it may have not gotten a lot of publicity in the President's visit, but the aid administrator in Mumbai talked a bit about a new initiative that we have with India to work in Africa. And I think India, given the fact that they have 75 million smallholders and the advances that India has made has all been with smallholders primarily, I think India more than any other country has more to offer to Africa. And we want to partner up with the Indians and take the technologies that they have that are immediately applicable to Africa and bring them to Africa and bring Indian experts there and African experts to India, and work with the Indians to develop new initiatives that we don't know about yet, but we might be able to develop together and then work in Africa. So we're trying to address your point, which we take very carefully in a number of different ways.
Thank you. Maybe time for one more question. Yep. Oh, and there's one. Microphone's there. Let's go there. Yes. Keep it succinct, and we can maybe get in another one then.
Good morning. My name is Elena Pachon. I work at the International Center for Tropical Agriculture in Colombia. And just as a follow-up comment, the Panamanian government has supported biofortification for the past 4 years through their own initiative, equivalent to sort of the NIH. They've supported both the research and the dissemination and implementation with local partners. So that might be an initiative to look at as you're trying to look for models for other parts of the world.
Good point. Thank you.
Michael Lipton, Harvest Plus Program Advisory Committee at Sussex University. I'd like to follow up your splendid answer to the scholar from India. One of the main difficulties facing any African government with regard to agriculture, and anybody trying to help any African government with regard to agriculture, is that the agricultural output statistics for food from smallholders are of almost no value. They are published solemnly year on year and are based upon practically no field inquiries which are properly supervised. India has a record since Mahalanobis's work in the 1940s of increasingly first-class agricultural output data. Might this initiative possibly commit to improving, along with the work that's being done at national level by the Gates Foundation, but to going to the micro level and getting decent agricultural output data so people know whether people indeed have the slightest idea whether these ambitious plans are being realized, if not, where they're going wrong, if yes, where they're going right.
Just a quick comment, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because absolutely that's one of the areas that we're talking to our colleagues in India about, and how to go about that in Africa. And more generally, an element I did not mention in the Feed the Future initiative is a big emphasis on monitoring and evaluation. We want to know what works and what does not work, and how to fine-tune it as we go. So we're very focused on data collection and defining it in different ways than have been done in the past to make it more useful. So we have a group of people working on these issues, as we move forward.
Thank you, Roger.
Just to that point, there was a meeting I think 2 weeks ago in Uganda of the national leaders in ag statistics. And USDA is very interested in mobilizing the global community in ag statistics to try to get some accurate projections. And I think it's at least a start. They're talking together internationally, but certainly the Department of Agriculture is heavily engaged to try to get these numbers right.
And as a journalist, I would certainly second better statistics, better numbers, because it just helps with the whole evaluation and presenting the picture of what is going on in the countries, particularly as production increases and success stories to be told. The more accurate and fulsome the numbers are, the better that'll be. Great. This is a great opening start to this wonderful conference. And thank you, Ambassador Garvelink. And I don't know, Peter, did you have anything to add, or you're?
Thank you.
Thank you.